Welcome to the Flightcast, a place where opinions aren't right or wrong, and where we can agree or disagree about movies, TV, and other assorted media because it's all subjective. My name is Ray. Thank you so much for joining me, as we are now a mere 10 days away from the epic release, hopefully epic release, of Superman in theaters. A little bit sooner for me, of course, because Shonda and I are going to go see it at the Amazon Early Prime screening, but look, that's the focus of today's episode. Just letting you know, this isn't going to be necessarily that long of an episode, famous last words, but it is time to just clear the air going forward because I'm had it. I've seriously had it with a number of things that are going on right now, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to get it through, and we're going to hash this out, and we'll talk it out. You know, people will respond to this over flight chat, but yeah, this is going to be a come to Zod meeting. This particular episode is a come to Zod meeting because we got to get all of our shit together. We've got to get all of our ducks in a row before this damn movie releases. We're going to do it. We're going to happen. It's going to happen right now. But before getting into all of that, I want to remind everybody listening to this show that you can hear this show and all of my other shows in the Flightcast podcast network at theflightcast.com or wherever you get your podcast, whether it is Apple Podcasts, whether it is the Flightcast YouTube channel, whether it is Spotify, whether it is Pandora, or wherever you get your podcast. You can hear this show on Tuesdays. You can hear Flightbox on Thursdays, which is the TV review show that I do, and I will be talking about the last 3 episodes of Ironheart this Thursday, so stay tuned for that. My goodness, has that been a phenomenal show, and a whole lot of chatter surrounding that as well. That's a whole other topic, getting into Marvel. But we'll be talking about that on Thursday, and then on Saturday, this weekend rather, of course, will be another round of flight chat feedback. And I imagine even after tonight's episode, there's going to be a decent amount of feedback. We got a lot to hash out. We got a lot to talk about with respect to Superman before we see this damn movie on July 11th or sooner. And I also want to take a moment to thank all the supporters of patreon.com/theflightcast. Hope that you are enjoying the bonus content there. I posted another episode of Flight Speed yesterday where I was ranting on some things that I'm going to talk about tonight with respect to Superman. And also stay tuned for new episodes of Flight Review because I talked on Flight Chat the other day about going through the Jurassic Continuum, and I think I still am. It's not going to happen during the week, though, because it's just, I don't have time. Like, I seriously don't have time, like, during the week to just sit down and watch shit. There's too much stuff going on, like, with respect to work and then other things that I try to do on a regular basis and just trying to get everything straight. I have to wait until the weekend. And so, because I want to rewatch through all of the Jurassic Continuum before I watch Rebirth. And I can't say that my energy is, like, that high for it because I do enjoy the franchise, but I still need to give Fallen Kingdom another shot. And then I also need to watch Dominion in its entirety because I've never seen it, right? So it might be a minute. It might not be this week with respect to Jurassic World Rebirth. So perhaps, I know I said in Flight Chat that it would be a spoiler-free conversation if you commented on it, but maybe not so much because I don't know that I'm going to get a chance to see it this weekend. Yes, things have changed like that. I just realizing that when you bite off more than you can chew and you're like, as soon as I was done recording that episode, I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that because that's a lot of movies. It's 6 movies. It's 6 movies, and then I got to go to the theater to see the 7th one, and it's coming out tomorrow, and I'm not going to get a chance to see it tomorrow, and probably not Thursday as well because I'm working, and certainly not Friday because it's 4th of July, and either my family's going to want to do something or I'm just going to come up here and do something with Shonda. I don't know. Either way. Like, she's going to have the day off. I don't have the day off. She's going to have the day off. But either way, yeah, that's probably going to end up being episodes of Flight Review on Patreon. And also stay tuned for Flight Report because I have to read All-Star Superman and Superman for All Seasons. I have to do that. That's going to happen. So that's going to happen first and foremost. The next thing I do after I watch Ironheart and talk about Ironheart on Thursday is I'm going to read Superman for All Seasons and I'm going to read All-Star Superman. And I'm going to talk about it on Flight Report on patreon.com/theflightcast. So anybody who is interested in hearing my thoughts on that, you can go to patreon.com/theflightcast and sign up to be a flight officer, and you will get access to that content when it posts this weekend, because I got to do it before Tuesday. Have to post that before Tuesday because I want those read and fully, like, you know, absorbed into my consciousness going into the Superman movie that we're going to see. We're seeing the July 8th showing. So stay tuned for that and hope you're enjoying all the other bonus content. And as always, I cannot thank you enough for your support to the Flightcast Patreon page. All right, here we go, people. I know that we've been talking a lot about Superman the last couple of weeks, understandably so, because we're 10 days away from it, and it is the movie event of the year. It is. As far as our circles are concerned, this is the biggest deal, I would say, right? Even bigger deal, and I know that there are many of you like Phil who, you're more anticipating Fantastic Four first steps. I understand that. In the grand pantheon of things, with respect to Marvel and DC and comic book movies as a whole, Superman takes center stage. It does. And at this point, the way this marketing has gone, I mean, did you see what they did today? Did anybody see what they did today with respect to the DC Studios marketing for Superman? I have said before, like a couple weeks ago, I was like, you know what, they've done a phenomenal job, done an excellent job, but it's just it's par for the course for what they should be doing, and it looks so impressive because it's so much head and shoulders above what DC Films did, which was nothing essentially. But no, they've actually gone above and beyond. I mean, seriously, the social media marketing, all the influencers that they've involved here. Like when I see Black Girl Nerds, when I see like other influencers and bloggers, like, okay, now they're getting the tours and they're getting involved and they're doing the interviews. We got Jay Towers from Fox 2 locally here in Detroit, who was in Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, I might add. He's conducting interview questions. We got bloggers asking about Nubia and Vixen. It's like, well, damn, okay. Like, they are doing some work here. And then today, this whole thing, they're doing a press junket in London right now. And I sent this to Wally, and he remarked that it was the one time he wished he hadn't moved out of London. But, like, they've got Superman hovering over top of this massive tower in London. I'm not joking. Like, Superman is hovering over there. And they had a Daily Planet helicopter fly past him. And they had a Daily Planet newsstand with prizes and giveaways at the bottom of this tower. This is marketing the likes that we've never seen from DC as far as any of their movies is concerned. No, this surpasses, seriously. This is bigger than Dark Knight. And that might, listen, the 42 Entertainment marketing campaign, for those old enough to remember back in 2008, that viral marketing was absolutely phenomenal. I still have never seen a marketing campaign quite like that. But this is just blitz. Absolute all out blitz for Superman. And look, I said this on Flight Speed yesterday. If this marketing, if this marketing doesn't work, like if this movie doesn't bank as a result of how much DC Studios is promoting it, then you know what? It just wasn't meant to be. It just wasn't meant to be, and Superman just is not that popular of a character. Seriously. How do you possibly put this much effort on everything that they've done? If you really pay attention to the social media stuff, the TV spots, the crossover promotions, all of these press junkets, and all this worldwide stuff that they're doing, everybody that they're involving in this, you put this much effort and energy into it, and no, we will never know exactly what the marketing budget is. They don't disclose marketing budgets, so stop guessing, Forbes. Stop guessing, people that want to scoreboard watch. They're never going to tell us officially. Any number that you see is going to be guesswork or hearsay from Scooper Madness. Let's just nip that shit in the bud right now. You're never going to know officially how much DC Studios spent on marketing for this movie. But for all their effort, everything that they've done, everything that they're continuing to do leading up to that premiere, if this movie doesn't bank, if this movie doesn't hit with the general audience, then it just wasn't meant to be. Seriously, it just was not meant to be. Because even movies that don't necessarily hit all that well with critics, like Transformers, for example, still bank money, right? It's all a crapshoot, though. Like, trying to predict it and trying to do all that stuff is nonsensical, in my opinion, especially at this point. But yeah, this whole huge marketing push with Superman, and we've got 10 days left. 10 days until the official big opening, less than that for those of us seeing the Amazon early screening. And with that, I need to address some stuff right now, because I'm drawing a line in the sand, guys. I am. I'm definitively drawing a line in the sand, because the last couple of days, I've just seen the conversation go in the direction that we were expecting it to go. But it's taken an even different direction than what I thought. With respect to the idea of, okay, where's the tribalism coming from? Who's saying this? Who's saying what? Who's going to do all the infighting and cause all the bullshit and the strife? And we've all had our suspicions. We all had an idea exactly of where it was going to come from and what it was going to say. But it's even taken on a different monster, because I'm seeing revisionist history with respect to, what actually happened with the DCEU and the Snyderverse. I'm seeing all these complaints and all this caterwauling about, I can't believe, why can't they just let it go? Why do they have to ruin it for everybody? Yada, yada, yada. It's horrible in the first place. It wasn't even Superman, and all the Homelander shit and comparisons and all that. And you know what? I've reached a point of clarity where it is time to just seriously draw a line in the sand and move forward. And I'm going to ask all of you listening to this show right now to do me a favor. All of you regular listeners, anybody that is listening for the first time. If you know anyone, if you have any friends, any family, if you know anybody that is fiercely anti-Snyder, fiercely Donner cultish, they worship at the altar of Christopher Reeve's interpretation as though it is the only way that you could possibly ever do Superman to get it right. Those people, if you know any of those people in your life, I want you to please send them this episode. I mean it, seriously, because I'm addressing them as well as you in the process. And I know a good amount of what I say tonight in this particular episode are things that I've already said to you, things that you already know if you've listened to the show or if you have been around the conversation over the last 9 years with respect to DC on the big screen and Superman interpretations in general. Everything that I say in this episode is not going to be a surprise to you, but it might be a surprise to other people. And I really just, if there's any opportunity for those people to hear the truth about what is going on with respect to this entire situation, please just send them this episode because I have some shit to say. And not that I'm necessarily going to change any hearts and minds with respect to my ranting, but it's just something that I feel is necessary to do here 10 days out from the release of a brand new Superman film. All right? Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Now let me start by saying this. I do not care what it is that you're seeing on social media. I do not care what echo chambers and what corners of threads or, the South African Nazi hell site known as X/Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. I don't care what it is that you're seeing. The cold, hard, objective reality, not subjective opinion, the objective reality at this point in time is that there are far more people complaining about Zack Snyder's DC interpretations and Zack Snyder's interpretation of Superman than there are people who are actually members of the Snyder cult. And I mean living flesh and blood people. I don't understand how James Gunn can figure this out. James Gunn, the creative head of DC Studios, the co-head of DC Studios, co-CEO with Peter Safran. I don't understand how he has figured this out, how he has weathered this storm, and everybody else, at least within the anti-Snyder cult areas, can't figure this out. Maybe it's because they're in the anti-Snyder cult. But the reality of the situation is you go on social media right now and you will find vastly more people complaining about Snyder cultists and complaining about Zack Snyder and the DCEU and the Snyderverse than you will about anyone that is actually a member of the Snyder cult. All that I've seen in the last month or so with respect to the Snyder cult is that stupid-ass Reddit post. That's it. And here and there, I will see bots, right? And maybe that's part of the issue, too, is we're horrible at identifying bots. We're horrible at seeing how trolls and other forces try to manipulate our feelings on behalf of tribalism. But I would have thought that anybody paying attention to the press junkets this past week, anybody paying attention to the interviews that we've had, that they have had with David Corenswet, Rachel Brosnahan, Nicholas Hoult, James Gunn, etc., I would have thought that maybe we could have identified some of what is happening here. Has everybody seen that clip? I guarantee the majority of you that listen to this show right now, you've seen the clip of the woman. I don't know who she is. I don't know who she writes for or who she is blogging for or whatever, but the reporter or the blogger, whoever it is, that point blank asked David Corenswet if he thought that his Superman would save Kevin Costner's Jonathan Kent in Man of Steel. Have we all seen that clip? If you haven't, well, that's essentially what happened. And he's not by himself, right? This isn't a solo interview, right? It's him, Brosnahan, and Holt, and this woman point blank asks him that question. And before even hearing Corenswet's answer, our brains are already thinking, why? Why are you asking that question? Why is it necessary? No, don't answer that question, lady. We already know why you're asking that question. You are fishing for a soundbite. You're fishing for something juicy and gossipy and explosive that you can post on the internet 1,000 times and it gets regurgitated by Culture Crave and Discussing Film and Fandom Wire and everybody else, and it turns into the next big thing that gets you all of your notoriety because you asked David Cornswet a question that pissed off the evil cadre of Snyder Bros. Yeah, that's why you asked him that question. And David Cornswet deflected your bullshit very deftly, because he just said, I don't know, and then pivoted to the fact that he was in Twisters, right? Like, he knew what you were asking him, but he pivoted to a completely other movie that he was already in, a movie that I haven't seen. I knew he was in Twisters. I have not seen Twisters. I've seen the original. I own the original, but I have not seen the new one. I would like to see it at some point. But either way, David Cornswet deflected the tribalist bullshit that he was asked. And bravo to David Cornswet for deflecting that shit, because he even understands that it's not important. He even understands that that type of bait is not necessary for him to take. And you know why he understands that? Because his director understands that. James Gunn has not taken the bait. We have receipts of James Gunn's response to any of this Snyder cult bullshit, right? Remember when the Reddit post came out and they were all trying to warn him? They tagged him like, James, you should be aware of this. And it's like all this fear and paranoia, like, he's got to know, we've got to warn him that the evil Snyder cult is planning to boycott his film and they're going to affect things. And he goes, it's probably a guy and 8 other guys, like, just, posting whatever in wherever they're at. Like, he does not take it deadly seriously because he knows it's a tiny, tiny, tiny ass group of morons, delusional humps that are not worth his time. He's got way bigger fish to fry, and guess what? So do you. You most certainly have bigger fish to fry. If you're sitting there that worried about anybody in the Snyder cult doing anything, wow, you have a lot of time on your hands. You must not have a job. You must not have any responsibilities in the real world. You must seriously be sitting there just waiting for a reason to be miserable, which, ironically enough, is exactly what the 10 people left in the Snyder cult are doing. Let's break it down for you here. The reality of the situation, for those of you that don't understand this, and again, if you're a regular listener to the show, you totally get what I'm saying. This is just a rehash, but whatever. I'm in rant mode, so break out the popcorn. The truth of the matter is that when Release the Snyder Cut was actually a thing, when that was actually a hashtag and a movement for about 4 years or so, there were a lot of rational Snyder fans that were absolutely on board with that because we wanted to see Zack Snyder's Justice League. We wanted to see the Snyder Cut. We wanted to see his original vision because we knew the story. We knew all of the bullshit that had happened. We knew the lies that Warner Brothers had told us, and we just wanted to see that movie. And as time went on, most of us rational fans reasoned, well, the longer this goes on, longer this stretches, the less likely that this is even remotely going to be continued, especially after Hamada and his cronies kept releasing other movies like Shazam and Birds of Prey and Wonder Woman 1984, and it was just very clear that we were not going to see any type of continuation of the original plan for the DCEU. And it kept getting further and further away. And Henry Cavill kept doing other things, and he was being held in limbo. Ben Affleck was on this will he, won't he type deal, involving Matt Reeves and all that subterfuge and all that nonsense going on. You had all the trouble with Ezra Miller. Yes, just all that noise and just ridiculousness going on there. You had the Ray Fisher stuff, and it became abundantly clear to anybody paying attention that the DCEU, as originally thought and constructed, or believed rather, concepted, if you will, was not going to see the light of day. So all we really wanted was Zack Snyder's Justice League. And then when that officially got announced, and then when it was officially released, it wasn't Snyder fans that came up with Restore the Snyderverse. That came from critics. That came from everybody that rated that movie, Zack Snyder's Justice League, fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Go look at Rotten Tomatoes right now. It's fresh. It has a higher rating, a significantly higher rating on the hell site Rotten Tomatoes than either Man of Steel or Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. The critics are the ones that said, this universe might be okay. They should totally restore the Snyderverse. That's where it came from. And then the cultist glommed onto that. But all the rational Snyder fans went, it's probably too late. We're not gonna. We would love to see it happen. We would love to keep that door open, but the reality of the situation is the feasibility and the money and the direction of Warner Brothers probably means it's not going to happen. more than likely. Like, we had resigned ourselves to that. We had. We truthfully had, seriously. Anybody that, like, legitimately believed, hey, you know what? We need to make them do this. No. We already got Zack Snyder's Justice League, and that was a miracle in itself, right? A miracle called HBO Max, and the fact that at that time they needed streaming content, and it was a perfect thing for them to release as streaming content once they got it finished, right? That's how we were able to get Zack Snyder's Justice League. But here's the deal. Those of you who dislike Zack Snyder and those of you who think the Snyder Cult is this horrible, awful thing, the rational side of the fandom had already started moving on. We had. We totally started moving on. And we moved on in a multitude of ways, to be honest with you. There are many of us that still paid attention to DC. Many of us that still pay attention to the movies that were released by Walter Hamada and his cronies, right? And still paid attention to everything that happened when Zaslav took over, the Batgirl fiasco, the hiring of James Gunn and Peter Safran to lead DC Studios. Many of us still paying attention to that. And there are those of us that absolutely disconnected from this entirely. Like, there's a handful of people, I won't say them by name, I've mentioned a few of them before, but there's a handful of people I know that are not seeing Superman. I'm fairly certain they're not going to see Superman. If I hear that they see Superman on July 11th, I will be surprised. I will. And if they do see it, I don't know that they're going to like it. And this is just based on the clips and things that I have seen and some of the other, like, you know, reactions to things that I have seen so far from what has been released, stuff that I have tried not to steer anybody into the direction of because it's technically spoilers if you don't want to see it, if you don't want to hear it. So I try not to repost that stuff. But either way, there are Snyder fans, rational Snyder fans that I know don't post vitriol and hatred on social media because they have lives, they have jobs, they have better things to do with their time, and their time is occupied with families, friends, work, whatever it is in the real world. And they're not caterwauling about anything at this point. They're not complaining about James Gunn. They're not complaining about the DCU. They're not complaining about David Corn's wet suit or anything with the tone or the jokes or the hokiness or whatever it is. They're not complaining about any of that. They have disconnected themselves from DC cinematically, and maybe they'll watch Superman when it comes out next week, or maybe they'll wait and watch it later when it drops on HBO Max, inevitably at some point, probably later this year, right? But the point of the matter is they're not part of the cult because we disassociated ourselves from that damn cult a long time ago. It's been a couple of years at this point, right? They went off the deep end after Zack Snyder's Justice League. We were happy. We celebrated that the movie was releasing. They kept being miserable. They kept being disgusting. They took it further, and then their ranks shrunk. And I mean massively shrunk, right? To the point where, like, the people that I talk to, the people that I've seen in person, right, at the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, like special events like the BVS Comes Home event in 2021, where I met Stephen Colbert from Screen Rant, where I met Anthony and Wonder Meg and the others from World's Finest, right, and Joey, right? The Zack Snyder's Justice League event around Thanksgiving when I met my podcast brother from Squadcast Media, Tim, and his wife, right? And caught up with all the others as well, right? Enosh from Poindexter Lounge and all that stuff. Those people, those individuals who were literally the heart of Release the Snyder Cut, and I will also include Dave the Film Junkie, of course, right? And everybody over there on the Vodka Stream panel. Those people, those rational individuals, those diehard fans of Zack Snyder have moved on. They have. They most certainly have moved on from the DCEU and the Snyderverse because it's over. It's objectively over. It's done. It ended when Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom released in 2023. It was over. And at this point, if we see any type of continuation whatsoever of that particular storyline, we would be glad to see it in comic book form or motion comic form or animated form, right? We know that live action is dead. We know it's not going to happen. We're not campaigning for it. And we make up the vast majority of anyone on this earth that is an actual Zack Snyder fan. We're the ones that actually love and revere Man of Steel. We're the ones that actually love and revere Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice Ultimate Edition. And we're the ones that actually believe that Zack Snyder's Justice League is one of the best shared cinematic universe comic book films ever made. That's us, not the cult. The Snyder cult is a bunch of circle jerk morons that just want to get a rise out of everybody because they're miserable and they want to share their misery with the rest of everybody. And it's a tiny, tiny, even more shrunk group of people than you might realize. and why that hasn't occurred to you. All the other bullshit going on in social media, all the other ridiculousness, all the other nonsense and whatnot. You can't understand that you're being goaded by bots and morons, right? Because what happens is the 8 to 10 morons that are actually part of the cult, when they put out that stupid shit like that Reddit post, which I should also add that the Snyder Cut Reddit apparently took that post down because they realized how batshit that was, right? So that even got more batshit, like, for the originators of the cult, the people that claim to be part of, and it's not even like the Reddit is not even called Snyder Cult, it's called Snyder Cut, right? So there are people in there that probably are just following it, but don't feel like, that they're not militant. They're not this flippin' army that's going to do whatever, right? It doesn't work that way. It's not like a room full of incels. It's not how this actually goes. No, it's a tiny group of people posting nonsense, and James Gunn knows this better than most, apparently. And then what happens is that nonsense gets posted, and others decide to try and exacerbate the situation because they see how much attention you are paying to it. You are giving it air. You are making it more than it actually is. And it would be the easiest thing in the world if you fools just ignored it. And again, I'm not talking to my audience. I'm not talking to the people that listen to this show regularly. The people who listen to the show regularly understand exactly what I'm talking about. However, I will say this. There are a few of you, with respect to, listeners of the show, that I do believe responds to too much of the bullshit. I think way more of us should be blocking and moving on, right? Or if you decide to comment on somebody's bullshit, comment and then block them, right? So that it doesn't hit your algorithm anymore, and so that they can't waste any more of your time. Because what is happening is the bots and the trolls and all the dead internet theory shit, like, that is what is amplifying this and making it bigger than it actually is. There is absolutely nothing that the little tiny remnants of the Snyder cult can do that will affect Superman. There isn't. There's nothing. Absolutely nothing. They're powerless. They live for nothing but misery, and they live for nothing but to shit talk everybody else. That's it. And then, Scooper Madness and bloggers and others and, silly interviewers that ask David Corns what dumbass questions try to glom on that to, make it bigger than what it actually is. The reality of the situation is that the Snyder Cult itself is nothing. The Snyder Cult itself is a waste of your attention, a waste of your energy, a waste of our attention. And the fact that these people don't seem to understand this leads me to ask this question. When it comes to the anti-Snyder crowd, when it comes to those who just really hate his version of Superman and think it's just Homelander incarnate, right? Are those people actually excited for Superman? This was a question. I have to give Phil Barker credit for this. Because I posted earlier on Threads, I said, the amount of people that can't stop complaining about Zack Snyder's DC movies is vastly larger than the number of actual Snyder cultists. That's not an opinion. That's objectively the case based on social media responses. For a group of people that hate his take on Superman, they sure can't stop talking about it. Weird, because it is weird. And Phil commented and said, makes you wonder if they're genuinely excited for the new movie at all, LMAO. And you know what? He's got a point. Because honestly, are they excited actually for the movie? Or are they just excited to talk shit to Snyder fans? It's difficult to say which at this point. If you're somebody out there that just really loathes Man of Steel and really doesn't like BVS and thinks that just Zack Snyder never understood Superman, are you actually legitimately excited for James Gunn to understand Superman? Or are you just waiting to shit talk Snyder fans? Because there's a difference, right? It's not one and the same in that regard, right? If you were legitimately excited for James Gunn's Superman, and if you're somebody that didn't care for the DCEU and you want to put that behind you and you want to move on to the DCU, that's one thing. But if you just can't resist mouthing off because for whatever reason you think that the cult has ruined your experience as a fan and you want to make certain that you rub their nose in whatever success Superman is going to have at the box office, if you're that person, then you have a problem. And dare I say you are not a Superman fan. Dare I say you are an asshole and a poser. And you are the most toxic of any of us. And you are no better, in fact, you might even be worse, than the Snyder cult itself. Because at this point, there's certainly way more of you, anti-Snyders, than there are of them, Snyder cult. But think long and hard about that, right? Look in the mirror, do whatever self-reflection you need to figure that one out. Decide for yourself if you're actually excited for James Gunn's Superman or if you just are excited to talk shit to Snyder fans, because it says way more about you than it does about any of the rest of us. Again, I am a diehard Zack Snyder fan. I own the entire Christopher Reeve collective. I own all of Zack Snyder's trilogy. And I own Superman the Animated Series. That comprises my Superman collection in physical media. All right, so that's how many different interpretations. Oh, you know what? I also just got Superman Returns. I forgot to mention that. About a week or so ago, I finally pulled the trigger, got a steelbook of Superman Returns. So I have all of Superman's cinematic history, if you will, in physical media. And on some level, I enjoy all of it. Yes, there are parts of Superman 3 and 4 that I actually do enjoy. There are. I'm able to find a silver lining. You know why? Because I'm an actual Superman fan. I am not a hater. I'm not somebody that is just looking for a reason to shit talk any part of the fandom. I'm not looking to shit talk Donner fans. I'm not looking to shit talk Snyder fans, especially since I'm a fan of both. It's not necessary. And I got Superman the Animated Series. I threw that in there for good measure, even though it's not a film, but that was a show that I watched for the first time a couple of years ago because I'm a Batman fan by trade, if you will. And after they changed Batman the Animated Series to match Superman's aesthetic when they brought him into the DCAU, that was when I checked out of the DCAU, and there's a ton of DCAU I haven't watched. So a couple of years ago for DC TV Squadcast, I revisited the DCAU. I watched Superman the Animated Series. And I watched Batman Beyond. I watched both of those on HBO Max. And now I own both of those because both of those shows are amazing. But I'm just bringing that up to make a point here about what Snyder fans are actually doing with respect to July 11th. We are not shit-talking any of you on social media. We are not dogging James Gunn. We are not wasting our time with nonsense about boycotts and silly shit. We're not doing that. The vast majority of Snyder fans, the vast majority of humans, actual human beings that enjoy Zack Snyder's trilogy, that enjoy Henry Cavill's version of Superman, are not talking shit to you. We have moved on from all of that, and we are curious at worst about what's going to happen with Zack. Actually, no, we are disconnected at worst, right? Because like I said, there are Snyder fans out there that really don't have any interest in the DCU going forward. But as far as anybody that is going to see the movie like definitively on July 11th, we are at worst curious and at best intrigued, and maybe even excited at this point. I talked about how my cautious optimism has the hype has risen, right? I am getting a bit energized. Seriously, because I want this movie to succeed. I want to enjoy this movie, and we want to enjoy this movie. Zack Snyder fans, believe it or not, want to enjoy Superman on July 11th. Yes, we do. That is not opinion either. That is fact. We don't want to see a Superman movie that sucks. We don't want to see a Superman movie that is bad, subjectively speaking. We want to enjoy ourselves, and we want the general audience to enjoy themselves, and we want it to succeed. We do. We absolutely do. We are not rooting for its failure because we are not so deluded as to believe that that's the door to reopen the Snyderverse. No, that door is sealed shut. It's over. The next time we could possibly see it once again, comic or animated form, more than likely comic. And that would take some doing from Jim Lee and Zack Snyder and others if they were even involved in doing it. But as far as the big screen is concerned, it's the DCU's time. It's James Gunn and Peter Safran at the helm. It is their time, and their empire, hopefully, is starting in 10 days. That is what we are actually hoping for. The people that you're so worried about, the people that you think are just trying to torpedo this, the people that you think can't let go of this, are nothing. They're nobodies. They're a tiny group of people being amplified by bots, trolls, and influencers that want to get their flash in the pan. That's it. That's all it is. And if you seriously doubt this, then I invite you to not only listen to my thoughts with respect to Superman after I review it next week, but also to any of the people that I listen to, because I guarantee you the people that I mentioned here, right, any of those names that I talked about, when they talk about Superman, because they are, Dave the Film Junkie is going to talk about Superman. Wonder Meg, Anthony, they're all going to talk about Superman, and I guarantee you, ain't none of us going to be talking about, oh, the Snyderverse can come back. No, we're not going to talk about that shit, because we know it's over. We are the rational ones, and we vastly outnumber the Snyder cult, and you vastly outnumber the Snyder cult. So, if you really want it to go away, if you really don't want it to have any more air, if you really want it to not be this dangerous thing for James Gunn, then ignore it. Block it. Leave it alone. Seriously. Let the bots and the trolls and the stupid influencers sing themselves into a corner. Because that's how it'll truly go away. Not by them letting it go, but by you letting it go. You are the ones that are perpetuating this, anti-Snyder people. Those of you that despise that version of Superman, you're keeping it alive. You're the ones that are keeping it fresh in the conversation. You're the threat. You are a bigger threat to James Gunn than anybody else, than anyone in that Snyder cult, that's for sure. You won't let it go because you think he needs your protection. He does not. You think he needs your warnings. He does not. He is about to launch the biggest project of his life, and he has said so. He has got bigger fish to fry than 8 or 10 circle jerk morons that are causing a minor tizzy that's being amplified by nonsense across social media. And you are helping to amplify it. Knock it off if you really want it to go away. Do what the rest of us do. Block and move on. That's the simplest way that I can put it. And that brings me to this, everybody, seriously, because as of July 1st, the date of this particular episode, here's the deal, okay? Look, I'm done with the tribalism. I mean, I know it's there. I know we're never going to fully get rid of it, and I know there's going to be plenty of nonsense, especially, as I said, if Superman does well at the box office, right? All it has to do, honestly, all it has to do is pass Man of Steel. If it passes Man of Steel in box office, here come the headlines. Right? If it has a better opening weekend, here come the headlines. Here comes all the inflammatory shit. Here comes all the nonsense. And here's what's going to happen. The second I see that nonsense, I'm blocking it. I don't give a shit who posts it. I don't care where it's coming from. It's over. Because I am not engaging in that nonsense any further. My primary concern is Superman. My primary concern is DC Studios going forward, because this is now the current incarnation of DC cinematically that is most important to me, because I want to see it succeed as a fan of DC Comics, as a fan of DC on the big screen. So, any tribalism, any noise, any stupid comparisons, blocked. Unceremoniously, and you're gone forever. I never need to see your shit ever again. I don't care who it is. Because I'm just done with this nonsense, okay? If we want to have rational conversations where we talk about the Superman Cinematic Collective, and we want to actually hash out like a rankings or what we think of it, and if we want to compare and contrast based on that, without tossing shade, without being snarky, without being tribalistic, without, shake hands and keep it clean, without any of that nonsense conflict, right? It's forced. It's fake. It's like what Whedon tried to do when he had Wonder Woman shove Bruce Wayne into some crates because he made that stupid ass comment in Justice League. It's that. You want to be like that? I don't want to be like that. I'm not doing that. Okay? So from here on out, I'm not focusing on any of that shit. And I know I've been doing like the screenshot thing, like I've been blocking stupidity, and I've been like screenshotting it and warning everybody else. I'm even done doing that, truthfully, right? I'm just blocking people unceremoniously. I'm not interested in this tribalist bullshit anymore. I'm not, because it's a waste of time. And there's a real chance, right? There's my hope as a fan, but there's also a real chance that this movie could truly succeed. Like, to me, the marketing presence and what they're doing with respect to the cast and crew and all these interviews that I've been watching, and just the clips that I've seen, right? Like, do I think everybody is going to enjoy this movie? No, I do not. Do I think that there's a chance that this ends up being the biggest movie in July? I do think there's a chance. I do. We will see what happens, right? We got Jurassic World coming out tomorrow, right? And then Superman, and then in a couple of weeks, at the end of the month, we got Fantastic Four. I understand that it's a loaded schedule in that regard, right? But DC Studios has put their best foot forward, and man, have they gone the extra mile with respect to this marketing. And to me, that tells me, not only do they understand the stakes are high with respect to this, but just, like, you can tell when people are being disingenuous. At least I feel like you can tell when people are being disingenuous, like, in interviews and when they're speaking out here, right? And the James Gunn interview with Rolling Stone, also his interview with Entertainment Weekly, the stuff I've been seeing Corin Sweat say, the stuff I've been seeing Brosnahan and Holt and everybody else say, is just, it does not lead me to believe that we're going to see schlock on July 11th. It just doesn't, right? Maybe it's not something that you care for. Maybe it's not your speed, but I still believe that there is a possibility, based on all this marketing stuff lately. I think there's a chance that this movie really could succeed, and this could be the big, huge start for DC Studios, and this could signal like a new era of success for DC on the big screen, and I am rooting for that. I am 100% rooting for that, and I am just tired of all the infighting. And the thing is, a big reason why I decided to talk about this in this episode is because when I look on social media, when I look on threads especially, I see other people echoing the same sentiment. I know that there are other people out there beyond anyone listening to this show that are tired of the tribalism. I know it. I see the reactions. I saw somebody. The reason the phrase Donner cult, like, that came from somebody commenting on an anti-Snyder cultist and saying, "Oh, here come the Donner fans," right? Like, somebody said that like a week or so ago on Threads, and I forget which one of you saw that, but like, just observing that, it's like, okay, now I'm seeing people that are seriously like, okay, enough, tired of the fighting. Can we just enjoy the next Superman, please? And we should be able to do that. Honestly, as fans, we should be able to do that. We shouldn't be fighting anyway. Like, all versions of Superman are valid, whether you like it or not. Christopher Reeve's version, valid. Henry Cavill's version, valid. I don't give a shit if you think Zack Snyder and Henry Cavill didn't understand Superman. The fact is, it exists. And there are enough people that do believe they understand Superman. And there's enough connections that you can make to the Superman lore to say, well, no, actually, I think they do understand Superman because of this and because of that. And if you still want to be a miserable piece of shit and argue that, that's your business. But the reality of the situation is it doesn't take away any of the validity from Zack Snyder's trilogy. It doesn't. It doesn't take away any validity from that. And it certainly doesn't siphon any validity from Christopher Reeve's version or anybody else that's played Superman on the big screen. And it will say nothing about David Corenswet's validity, because the Superman that we're about to see on July 11th or earlier, if you're seeing the Amazon screening, that's about to be a valid interpretation as well. All versions of Superman on the big screen are Elseworlds and valid. And they're going to draw from multiple, inspirations, multiple sources from the source material, because Superman is a nearly 90-year-old character. And I'm tired of fighting. I am tired of fighting. I've been tired of fighting, but it's one of those cases where it's like, I really have no interest or energy to continue this tribalist nonsense. If I see it, I'm blocking it with post haste, without warning, I don't give a shit. My block list will be fed if I see any of that. I will make certain that my algorithm knows I don't want to see that shit from anybody. I am only interested in open-minded individuals that wish to have an open-minded conversation about Superman and about DC Studios and about DC on the big screen or small screen or wherever, right? That's all that I care about going forward. All this other mess, all this other nonsense, all this gatekeeping bullshit, for the birds. Absolutely for the birds. So that is where I am drawing my line in the sand. And just moving forward, it is time to focus on a new Superman movie. We're talking about only our third different Superman interpretation in 47 years. Because again, Routh and Reeve count as one, right? So if Routh and Reeve count as one, even if Routh and Reeve didn't count as one, even if you do treat Brandon Routh differently, it's our fourth Superman actor in 47 years on the big screen. Fourth, right? Third in terms of continuity, fourth in terms of actors in general, right? How many has Batman had? 6 since 1989 in a shorter period of time, right? We're talking about 3 or 4 since 1978 for Superman, 6 for Batman since 1989, and 3 for Spider-Man since 2002. It's not fair. That's why I've said this is Superman's time to shine. That's all that we should be focused on. Superman. And the viability of his first film and what we think of it, how we fairly critique it, not criticize, critique, right? Because it's supposed to be critique, not criticism. Now that's one that I will continue to beat that drum. It's supposed to be critique, film critique, not film criticism. We've lost our way with that. We've lost our way with a number of things in reality, but that's where I'm at, guys. Seriously, not interested in this tribalist nonsense. And I know that plenty of you, pointed out, and it's like, well, Ray, I blocked this person, I did that. Don't even do that. Don't even do that. Just, if you see the nonsense, I encourage you to block it and move on. Let it go. They're going to flood us with it. They're going to do everything they can to try and bait us, just like that reporter tried to bait David Corenswet in that with that question, right? They're going to try and bait us because they want us to post nonsense. They want us to get upset. They want us to get angry so that they can go, see, look at the cult, when we're not the cult. We're just people that don't like seeing Zack Snyder's version of the character shit on because we believe that all interpretations of Superman on some level are valid, whether we like them or not. Right? That's where we should be. Or we have a hierarchy, right? At this point in time, is Henry Cavill still my favorite Superman? Yes, he is. Will that change on July 8th? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. I'm at least giving David Corenswet that option, that potential, right? We'll see. We'll see how it goes. And if anybody does put David Corenswet at the top of their list, I applaud them for that. Not because I think it's going to slight anybody else, but because that means that's a Superman that spoke to them. That is a version of the character that maybe spoke to them in a way that the others didn't, and that's what we should really be happy about. If Superman comes out on July 11th, and new fans that didn't pay Superman a lick of attention beforehand because they thought he was unrelatable or whatever other reason, right, because they didn't get into it, if that movie speaks to them on a personal level that really hits them in the feels or really makes a mark on them and they become a Superman fan as a result of that film, excellent. Fantastic. That is what we should be rooting for. Not whether or not this interpretation is better than the other. Not this tribalist bullshit. We should be rooting for new Superman fans to connect with David Corenswet as Superman. That is what we should be rooting for. We should be rooting for the success of DC Studios. If you're not interested in that, well, then you're in the wrong place. You are. You're listening to the wrong show. You're talking to the wrong people. Go and disconnect, right? Go and do what you're going to do, right? But here, as far as this show is concerned, as far as I am concerned, that is what the focus is. The DCU, the future of DC Studios, the future of Superman, and what we're thinking about this particular era, right? The Christopher Reeve era ended in 1987 with Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. The Henry Cavill era ended with Zack Snyder's Justice League in 2021. That's over. No, I'm not counting Black Adam. Zack Snyder's Justice League. That's when the Henry Cavill era of Superman actually ended. The David Corenswet era of Superman is about to begin, and that's what we should be talking about. That's what our focus should be, as far as I'm concerned. If you're not interested in talking about that, if you're not interested in being open-minded, subjectively speaking, with respect to your opinion about that, whether you like it or not, right? You don't have to like it. I'm not saying you've got to be forced to like a movie that you don't like, but we can have rational discourse about it without being tribalistic, without saying, well, and Snyder would have done this, or Gunn is a hack. No, none of that negative tribalist bullshit. None of it. You're blocked. You are blocked. You say that shit. I have no interest in it whatsoever. Period. I don't give a shit how much you hate Zack Snyder. I don't give a shit how much you hate James Gunn. I don't care if you even mildly dislike either of them. You say negative shit that is just toxic and not contributing to the conversation, you're gone. Period. Zero tolerance. Like, I'm at that point. Zero tolerance. And that's not echo chamber either, right? Because, again, many of you have disagreed with me over the years, and we're still not blocked, right? We're still conversing. You're still sending in emails. We're still having conversations. We're still talking on social media, right? A few of you, and I don't even know who, I have thoughts on which of you may not care for Superman, or on which of you may be more critical of Superman when you see it. But we're going to have a conversation, right? We're not going to devolve into nonsense. We're not going to turn into the bots and the trolls and the cultists stoking like any type of response from anybody else. We're going to have a nuanced, reasonable, rational conversation about it. That's not what I'm talking about. Obviously, that won't be blocked. I'm talking about the people that just fly off the handle emotionally and just, have to go into some type of rage because their favorite fictional character wasn't done the way that they wanted it to be done. Those people. Okay? I really hope, and I'm certain that I'm not talking about anybody that regularly listens to this show. But everybody else that wants to spout that ridiculousness, done. Over with. I mean, unceremoniously. And I don't need to announce when I do it. I don't. It's just going to happen. I am protecting my peace as a fan, my personal peace as a fan. I wish to enjoy this Superman film for whatever it is. I wish to enjoy the DCU for whatever it becomes. And I am wishing for the success of DC Studios. I've wanted DC Studios to exist for a couple of years. It finally does. And now I want to see it flourish. I do. Because at the end of the day, I didn't grow up a fan of only one particular version of Superman, or one particular version of Batman, or one particular version of a universe. I grew up as a fan of DC. Period. And just because I prefer Dan Jurgens in the comic doesn't mean I don't want to read John Byrne or Peter Tomasi. And I have read Peter Tomasi, I should mention, or Brian Michael Bendis in that regard, right? Just because I grew up a Christopher Reeve fan doesn't mean that I would shun the Zack Snyder films. I most certainly did not, and I never will in that regard, right? And I'm not going to shun this film. I'm going to enjoy it. It's going to join my Superman shelf. It will. It will. When they release it in 4K Steelbook form, which they damn well better, and I'm pretty sure they will. It will join Superman, the Christopher Reeve collective. It will join the Zack Snyder trilogy. It will join my Superman the Animated Series. It will join Superman Returns, right? It will be up there on that shelf. And eventually Superman and Lois will be on that shelf as well. Absolutely. That's just how it goes. Me being a DC fan that wants to be happy and wants to focus on the positive and at least the rational, right? If I don't care for a certain thing, or if we don't care for a certain thing, or if we disagree on things, can we at least be rational? Yeah, we can. That's the baseline here, guys. Rationality. Many of you, the vast majority of you, in fact, all of you, okay, let's be fair, all of you have exhibited rationality. Those of you that have commented on Flight Chat, those of you that have sent feedback, you have all exhibited rationality. And anybody else that wants to contribute rationality to our conversation is welcome. Anybody not interested in rationality can get the F out and stay out. Absolutely no quarter for it whatsoever. Zero tolerance policy for that nonsense starting now. Because I am not going to let that nonsense from either side ruin my calm, ruin my enjoyment of what we're about to see in 10 days or less. So, there you have it. That is what tonight's episode was about. That is what I wanted to rant about. That is what I thought needed to be said before we get into what hopefully will be an incredible experience for DC fans and for new fans of Superman that hopefully will be born in 10 days or less next week. So that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Flightcast, my little pre-Superman rant to just clear the air and get everything out in the open and move forward into a more rational form of discussion with respect to this franchise and with respect to this film. So thank you so much for listening. Hopefully I didn't offend anyone here. If so, well, hey, sorry. Sorry, not sorry, actually, truthfully. I don't apologize for anything that I said. I feel the way that I feel. You're welcome to disagree. And we can have a rational discussion about it if you disagree with me on it. But I feel like a lot of you probably don't disagree with much of what I said. But either way, if you've got thoughts on this, if you want to have this upcoming Flight Chat will be our last Flight Chat before the release of that film, right? If you want to talk about it, if you want to have any thoughts, you want to share any perspectives with respect to where you're at as a DC fan or a Superman fan with respect to all of this, you know where to find me on Threads and Instagram at the Flightcast, on BLUESKY at Flightcast. You can comment on the posting for this episode on the Flightcast YouTube page. There's also the Flightcast Facebook page. And, of course, I can be reached by email at ray@theflightcast.com. And don't forget, this Thursday, we are talking the last 3 episodes of Ironheart on Flightbox as well. So until then, take care, stay safe out there, have a great rest of the week, and I will see you all next time. Take it easy.